You're listening to The Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. Welcome back to the Topcast, teachers. It's great to be spending some more time with you, and thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate having you listen to these shows and provide feedback. It's always great to hear from you. By the way, on that topic, I've actually just opened up our voicemail again. So if you would like to leave a voicemail message with a question that I could potentially answer or a recommended guest that you might like me to interview, then just head over to topmusic.co/message and you can leave me a voicemail. It'll be awesome to hear from you. Today's episode is designed to give you some quick strategies around organisation. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look back to my childhood piano lessons, my teacher's studio was a debacle. Put it mildly, there was music literally everywhere, under every piano, on top of every piano, inside pianos, on the floor, boxed in shelves, like you name it. I don't know how she found anything anywhere, but she did somehow, and she managed to keep on finding music and teaching, of course, but wow, what a mess. And I'm afraid that I have seen similar situations in lots of studios I've been into. And I've got to be honest, mine has at times looked exactly the same. So I thought, who better to help us than the wonderful Amy Chaplin, who really is passionate about helping teachers, particularly with this element of organisation. So today we're going to unpack a few different sides of this story. One is printed sheet music, which is a big issue. And then also digital sheet music and digital games, because of course, as a Top Music Pro member, if you are, you're getting games and sheet music every single month. And so I want to help you work out what to do with all of that and how to quickly reference it and find it. So we're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about some general organisation tips for your online life, Dropbox versus Google, for example, your inbox, and also why Amy no longer uses Evernote and what she uses instead. Today's guest, Amy Chaplin, is a pianist, teacher, speaker, blogger, and fellow podcaster. She loves talking all about things studio business, organisation, and life-related. She combines all of these passions at pianopantry.com and on the Piano Pantry Podcast. She runs an independent piano studio in Northeast Indiana. She's an active member of the Music Teachers National Association, and Amy has served in multiple leadership roles at state and local levels, including president of the Indiana Music Teachers Association, VP of Membership, website editor, AIM development, and is now serving as a trustee of the association. She frequently speaks at local, state, and national levels on topics related to studio business, marketing, digital organisation, and music learning theory applications. Welcome to the show, Amy Chaplin. It's so good to have you here.
So great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been way too long. Completely my fault. I thought you had been on the show probably numerous times, actually, because you have been quite connected with Top Music ever since we hung out in San Antonio, right, in 2016. And then I invited you, because you did an amazing workshop on marketing, and I invited you to come and do a webinar for us. And that was one of the first of the monthly webinars for what was then the Inner Circle. So thank you for being around and about and helping us all those years ago.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think I was one of your first, like you said, the Inner Circle, and was excited to be invited. So
yeah, it's been a great relationship, and I'm excited that we can continue it today. So I've been feeling like I wanted to get you on the show because you've started to create a little bit of a niche in the industry as a digital and real life Marie Kondo for music teachers. And for those who don't know Marie Kondo, she wrote the book about, what's it called?
The life-changing magic of tidying up.
There we go. Yes. And so you are the organisation whiz, and you've been speaking at conferences and all sorts of things about that. So quickly, how did this passion come about for you?
Well, honestly, it's been kind of a slow progression. When I started my blog back in 2016, I really wasn't sure where I wanted to go with it. I knew I liked to cook, so that's why I came up with the whole Piano Pantry thing and thought, well, maybe one day I might do something with that. I want to just leave it open and figure out, like, where do my natural inclinations and passions lead me to? But within like the first year of the blog, I did a whole series, like a video series called Evernote for the Independent Music Teacher. And that was something that I felt really like confident doing and like really passionate about showing teachers how they could really use this tool in their studios. So that was kind of something that I became really quickly known for, I think, doing that series. And then I don't really know the exact time frame, but one of my friends, I had like an email coaching time kind of randomly with her. She was just like, hey, could you help me figure out how to get my email like under control and talk through like just mindset and how to like manage this on a day-to-day basis? So we did like an hour session. I shared some tips with her. And at one point she mentioned to me, she was like, Amy, you're the most organized person I know. You need to do more on organization for teachers. And, you know, I'm a slow to action kind of person, Tim. So I was just a little bit like, cool, that's great. How do I do that? I just like wasn't sure how to take that step besides just doing my blog. And it was kind of interesting. I through a whole series of events, like doing MTNA conference online with friends and hosting them at my house.
Oh, that's right. I remember you shared pictures of that. Yeah, it looks so much fun.
Cohort of us together. It was so fun. And I like to host. So that happened. And then I had a teacher friend just again mentioned to me, Amy, can we just like come to your house and you can help us organize our lives? You know, so all these little things kind of spiraled. And I started just doing this digital coaching. And it started with a couple of retreats at my house. And really, I just reached out to some friends and was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you be interested? Just kind of testing the waters. And they were like, I'm in. So it just kind of slowly progressed. And then another friend was like, hey, I can't come in person, but could you do it online for me? And so I just, you know, started, like I said, dipping my toes in the water and trying things out. And it's just kind of spiraled from there. So
very cool. And I've just seen all the pictures you posted of the retreat. You've literally just finished a retreat maybe this week. Is that right? How'd that go?
Yeah, they came on Wednesday evening and then they're all day Thursday, Friday, and then they leave about 1:30 on Saturday. So.
And you had about 6 or 7 teachers by the looks of things?
So I have 6 teachers that came. 3 stayed in my house. I have a space for 3 people. And then 3 stayed at a friend of mine it's like a second home. It's not an Airbnb, but it's like an Airbnb basically. And she let them stay there. So accommodation is all included. I do lunch and dinner meals for them. And then I did have one of my former students actually is my assistant now. And she does all of my social media scheduling. And she came just to be a second hand because what I do is so like hands-on, like right next to people, helping them literally try to figure out.
Literally.
Yeah, because I think that is such a thing that people need these days. Like it's so much easier to have someone just like right there by your side saying, okay, go to this setting, go to this setting. Like, okay, here's how, this works. And I just wasn't sure with just me being that person if I could do more than 3 or 4, because it's always so involved. So anyway, so she came and was fabulous. Helping out, and she has a Mac. I have a PC, so it was a good balance. So,
that's fantastic. Great. And we're going to talk about how you can help other teachers a little bit later on too. And we should mention you're another very well-known blogger, and podcaster, of course, too. And I love listening to your podcast. You have great guests and things. So we'll give you a shout out to all your links and stuff at the end. But I want to dive in and give some practical tips for teachers who are listening about organization, particularly of 3 things. One is printed sheet music. Secondly, digital sheet music, which is only becoming more of a struggle. And thirdly, more generally, your digital life on your computer. So should we start with the printed sheet music? So what tips have you got? Because I have boxes, I have shelves, I have under my piano, I have on my piano. And I'm pretty organized.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes a lot of it has to do with how much space you have. I mean, like I'm really lucky. I have filing cabinets and I've got a big, huge horizontal one. I've got 2 vertical, filing cabinets. So basically all of my music is in all of those, which is great. But one of the biggest things I think to remember is I think sometimes we feel like we have to choose one way of categorizing our music and organizing it. And that has to be the way.
That's what I was going to ask.
And it doesn't have to be that way. I think you can organize it in multiple ways, depending on how you look for music and how you think about it. So for example, you might have some pieces of music that you tend to think about that piece of music by composer. Maybe you're a big Wendy Stevens person, or Leela Vis's downloads, or your top music stuff. You might be thinking, okay, this is music that I got from Top Music. So maybe you want to save that, print it out and save it in a file by where you got it from or who wrote it. Maybe you have books that you really don't think about who the composer is, but you think more about the level of, is it a beginner? Is it just intermediate, early intermediate, late intermediate? Or maybe it's by genre. Like maybe you have some stuff that is church music related, or wedding music, or video game music. So I think that you can do it in a variety of ways. And, the other thing is, and the big thing with organization is, we want to just organize things sometimes and let it be. It's done. It's going to stay that way. And that's not the case. It has to be something that we continually kind of rethink and restructure and go back every once in a while and, change around. So like, for example, I had some music in file folders by composer. I think it was maybe, I don't know, Elisa Milne or somebody like that. It doesn't really matter. And I just found myself never really going and looking for that piece of music by composer name. So I ended up moving it into my by level structure, and I ended up using it more often. So you have to think about, how do you think about that particular piece of music and then file it in that way.
Yeah, and I guess it's about the goal as well. Do you want to be able to find something fast in a lesson and not be going through a whole filing cabinet of things? Because that is a bit of a challenge, because you want to capture the moment sometimes, and I know that piece. This is going to be perfect for this student. And then you're like, oh, where on earth have I put it? That's what you mean by like a piece like that you just know is a go-to. Maybe you'll have in a more accessible one than a big alphabetical.
Yeah. And sometimes I even keep, things that I use a lot more next to my teaching area. So if I'm more likely to grab, like maybe you have just one tub of some really quick go-to things that you can easily pull out, and not just in your main filing system where you have to go dig through, drawers and drawers of music for it.
Well, I was hoping you would just say this is the way to do it. You haven't solved that problem, Amy. I'm a bit disappointed. But what you have done is you've given us permission to not get it right the first time and to keep iterating on it. And personally, I do alphabetical for classical, all my classical music, because that's the easiest way. And then I've also done alphabetical for contemporary. So all your Kevin Olsons and Christopher Nortons and all of those. And then I'll have specific ones for, and I don't know what you call them in America, or if we call them the same things. Are they called magazine holders or something? They're kind of like a plastic half open box thing, right? Yeah. So I'll have one for like jazz or beginners and things like that. That's my system, but I don't know.
Like I've got like jazz stuff. I've got video game music. I've got patriotic, theme stuff like that. I don't tend to, like some of the contemporary composers, like you mentioned, I used to do a lot more by composer, like, oh, this is a Kevin Olson piece, or this is a Christopher,
Norton,
my mind just went blank. What's his last?
Norton? Yeah.
Fisher or something like that, piece. And just found for me, I didn't tend to find what I wanted as easily by doing that. Some of those more contemporary pieces, I just wanted to go by level and, search through what I have, for early elementary music or something like that. So
one of the other things that I used to do more when I had more students was, and to avoid that, suddenly trying to find something in a lesson and wasting a whole lot of time, would be, and I wonder if you or other teachers do this, to have a filing cabinet with a folder for each student in it. Or, you could do this on a shelf, I guess. And then in that, I'll just put all the things related to them that I need. So if I know, okay, we need some new music coming up, I'll spend my own time, find the music, and I'll just put it in there. So I know I can go and get it quickly. Is that?
I do. Yeah. So I keep a whole filing drawer with a file folder, labeled with every student's name. And then I will drop stuff in there all the time.
Yeah, just as you think of it or hear it, right?
Yeah. And sometimes if I'm just playing through new music that maybe I got like at a conference or something, I will be like, oh, that would be great for this student. Maybe not right this moment, but that was something I could do in the future. So sometimes I'll just drop it in their file drawer instead of making a note like on my digital planning sheet or something, So.
Yeah, and it's always there. And then if you do get stuck in a lesson, you can always go, oh, here's something that I found earlier. So,
well, even like some students, like I had one student who, we worked on some pieces in a book and we're like, these are a little bit maybe too difficult for us right now, but we really like the music. We want to come back to it. So that's something else too. Like, okay, let's hold on to this. I'm just going to drop it in your file. And I had one today, like we did that maybe 9 months ago. We pulled it out for the summer and it was perfect for him now.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. That's
it's kind of fun to see that too.
Yeah. So I only wish this was a two-way conversation and people listening could share what they do. But if you do have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment on our show notes page or on social media or wherever you like connecting with us. I'd love to hear how you organize your sheet music. Okay, so let's now talk digital sheet music. So we're actually talking not printing it out because we've kind of solved that issue potentially. But what about the digital files on our computer? Or should we print them out? Should we not? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. So I think it depends on how much you use your digital sheet music. Like if you're maybe someone that teaches online and you're using the digital stuff all the time, then no, you probably don't need to print it out. Sometimes I tend to be an out of sight, out of mind person. So if I have, some favorites of digital sheet musics that I know that I use a lot, I do like to print them out and just kind of stick them in my file by level or, whatever that is so that you see that hard copy. But I went through this years and years ago with my digital files, just like having this big dumping grounds of just so many things all over the place and not knowing what I had of what. And one of the biggest things I think is when you download a digital file, whether it's sheet music or anything else, is it's important to rename it right away to something that you would look for it as. So maybe if you download a piece of sheet music and it just has the name of the piece in it, but not the name of the composer, I like to add the name of the composer into that file name if that's like how I'm going to look for that piece of music, right? So don't rely on just how it's been downloaded because sometimes they have odd file names.
Especially IMSLP, those ones have lots of numbers and letters and all sorts of things.
Yep. So rename it a way that you would think about it. And it's kind of the same way of organizing your hard copy that I feel like we can do it a variety of ways. So don't hate me for that. I feel like if you're someone that's going to search for particular pieces of music by a composer's name, then organize their music into a file or a folder with that composer's name. Plug it into there. If you think you're going to be looking for that piece of music by level, then, plug it into an early elementary folder. Now, here's where it could get a little bit wonky. Like sometimes I actually duplicate the file and just put it into both. If I feel like I want to be able to scan I want to be able to scan, all of Kevin Olson's music in my digital files and also see this when I go look at my late elementary level music options in my digital files. I'll save it in both places. However, one way to kind of get around that is also to just trust and use your search functions. I think so often we forget that we don't have to go crazy organizing our digital files and even email sometimes, I have to say, because as long as we use that search function and it's named properly, you're going to be able to find what you want, no matter what folder it's in. So one of the things we talk about in my digital coaching stuff is think about from here on out. Don't worry about everything that you have in those files right now, but from here forward, make sure you're renaming things so that you can easily find it just by searching, even if it doesn't end up in the proper folder right away.
Yeah, that's great advice. The renaming, I think that's critical. And you're right about the search power of computers these days. It only gets better. And I would tend to agree. I used to really go crazy organizing emails. I remember back in Outlook days, probably 10 years ago or more, I would have all sorts of folders and I'd be dragging things around and have rules. I don't do any of it really anymore.
I know. Yeah. Everything that I would have said 5 years ago, I do different. Yeah. And I think it's good news, though, that we don't have to go crazy organizing. We can just kind of let things be. And as long as we're
okay with it in our
as long as we're
minds.
proactive. Yeah, exactly. But it's true. And, and that makes life a little bit easier. And you don't have to go, be so controlling about how we organize things if we're intentional in another manner.
Top Music Pro enables you to be a pro in your own studio because you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to make up all the answers yourself. You have support.
I think of Top Music as the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. This site is the whole pot of gold, and there's gold pieces in there that I didn't even know existed.
I am actually teaching a full studio. They're coming online from miles away. So I am certainly thriving.
So what Tim has done is build a global community of piano teachers who are interested, who are engaged. And when you become part of this community, you feel empowered.
My life is different now because I'm not just in an isolated little studio. I have learnt that there are other people out there going through very similar learning curves and sharing these ideas.
I've really gained a lot of skill sets where my teaching is far more creative, far more innovative. I have resources so that I can add to it things that I didn't know.
My life and my business are different now because I have the three things that I really wanted: less stress, more money, and more time.
It's going to be fun. Like, I got excited about being a piano teacher. It's revolutionized everything that I do.
I think I've become a more thoughtful teacher, a more organized teacher. The quality of my teaching has deepened.
I feel like I can do this. I feel a sense of hope. I love the creativity it fosters and the openness to thinking outside the box, and it's energizing.
Joining Top Music really solidified that. Like, no, this is your career and you can make a career out of this. That has really helped me be proud of what I do.
It's made such a tremendous impact on the way I think about teaching. It keeps your mind open when you have so many ideas.
My best win from being on Top Music Pro is just having a lot more peace of mind as a teacher and as a business owner. It just gives me that less amount of hours that I have to do with research and everything.
It's a really good place to spend a few pounds, a few bucks a month. What you get from it far outweighs what you have to pay into it.
My biggest win with Top Music Pro was increased student retention and increased income. I have a lot more confidence in how I'm teaching, and I have the resources that I need when I do have questions.
I probably went from about 35 students to maybe like 65. I ended up doing 3 classes and I had a waiting list.
If I hadn't signed up with Top Music Pro, I probably wouldn't have realized that teaching piano is a real job and you can build your whole career around it.
So we've said rename the file and then categorize as you wish, whatever suits you the best. But not to worry too much if you don't get it quite right, because there is, of course, the huge advantage is easy search.
Right, exactly. And if you want to be someone that is, you really want to get things into certain folders, I do recommend trying to come up with some kind of consistent naming conventions, right? Healthy naming conventions. And usually the way I recommend naming files is in reverse, maybe, of what you might think. So I like to start with really big picture things. So maybe you actually call it sheet music _ top music _ the name of the song or something like that. And then the thing about that is when you're looking in your files, like inside of your folders, you can see how much sheet music do I have, or I might name something worksheet and then the name of the worksheet, or I don't know, game, right? Or activity. So it's easy to see kind of big categories of things that you have. So I can see, I've got 10 worksheets on intervals of a second. Do I really need 10 worksheets on intervals of a second? Do I really need, 25 versions of Amazing Grace?
That's right. Well, it's the same with printed music as well. I mean, how many copies of versions have we got of various files, various editions of things? Probably don't need them all. But it's hard to throw out cheap music or give it away, I find. There's something really personal about that, or it feels bad to do or something, I don't know. But we should probably talk about deleting files. Or do we move them to a hard disk because we can't delete them? What do we do? So let's say we do have 10 versions almost identical of piece X, and we never use most of them.
Yes. So, okay. If you have plenty of space in your hard drive, you have 200 gigs of space, then I think for the most part, it's okay to just not worry about deleting stuff. I mean, there is going to come a point where if you get too crazy, you're going to have to start. But I think that's kind of the same with our email. I think people are always surprised when they see, oh, I have 10,000 emails still in my email account. Well, they're not in my inbox, though. They just exist in my archive. So, and it's the same with our files. I think if you want to keep stuff, you're kind of afraid to delete it because what if in 5 years you have a student that needs this piece, then you could create just a separate, like you said, archive file, dump it in there. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's not a part of your everyday files, but it's still there in the chance that you really need it. My question to myself is generally, have I used this in the past 3 years? Is this something I can see myself using anymore based on my teaching style? And is this something I would actually use in the future with someone? If it's not the quality or the value or something that fits the way that I teach, then I think you definitely want to delete it. Time to let go.
Good questions to ask. You've made me realize there was another category which we should talk about briefly because we're now giving all our members both sheet music and a digital games pack each week. So what about games? Any tips on those? Obviously, our members could organise it by the person who created it, I guess, but that may not be as helpful as what the game achieves.
Yeah, I think so. So again, kind of going back to those way of naming files. So if it's a game, I always start with the word game in the file. So you know exactly what this is. It's not a worksheet. It's not sheet music. It's a game. And so then again, when you're inside your files, you can see how many games you actually have. And then you put either, like if you're going to be looking for something again by that composer or that, not composer, but someone that created that game, then you would want to put their name in it. But I think most of us are just going to remember the name of the game, not really who it was by. So yeah, again, it all just kind of goes back to how do you think about particular things. But I would definitely include the word of what it is in the file name.
Or it could also be by the kind of type, not type of game, because you've obviously kind of got board games, you've got digital games. But I mean, the whole point of doing a game is to build up a skill, I guess. So you could categorize them, I guess, by note naming games.
Right. So for me, I think I do tend to put game _, and then note naming or intervals or rhythm or, I don't know, improvisation. So then what type of game is it for? And then the name of the game. And I was thinking, but I also do that in folders too. So I think that's why I missed that earlier, is I have folders for every type of concept you might actually teach. So an intervals folder, a rhythm folder, improvisation, functional skills. And then inside of each of those folders, I have worksheets and games. But yeah, kind of the same thing. I also include that in the file name so you can see what is it even for.
That makes sense. I like that approach to the key kind of skill areas that we know all students need. So it could be oral skills or sight reading or rhythm or whatever it is. And then just putting all of the resources that you use on that topic in there. That makes lots of sense. I like it. Okay, well, what about more generally your digital life? I still get shocked by seeing some people's desktops where there is you can't see the desktop. There are so many icons. What have you got some general organizational tips about computers generally?
Well, I think this could be a whole box of worms. I love having people that do my retreat thing take before and after pictures. That's not something we did right away, but we realized after a while, oh my goodness, we need to take screenshots of what this space looked like before. And I think that people get caught up in using their desktops of their computer as a safe space. when they're feeling overwhelmed about being able to find their files properly, it's just easier to save it to the desktop, which I understand. However, that is not really what the desktop is intended for. And it's not easy to get to your desktop. I mean, well, I know there's shortcuts you can use to get to it in one click, but still, like it's there as a place for pretty pictures of your family or your dog, which you can't see if it's covered in files. But the same goes for your downloads folder too. I think that's another place where people kind of get caught up in their computers is just downloading things to the downloads folder.
And leaving them there. Mm.
And leaving them there.
Yes, because there's no organization at all.
Exactly. And the downloads folder is not a place for saving things. It's more of a temporary transfer location. So I encourage teachers, you got to download it, rename it, and then promptly move it to where it belongs, right? It's just like things in your house, right? You seem like you're probably a pretty organized person in life too. You know, things have their place. Your shoes go here.
I try to tell my family that every day, and will they listen? No.
But it's the same thing with your downloads, though. Yeah, a place for everything. Like this file, the sheet music doesn't belong in your downloads folder. It has a designated location.
All right, so that's file structures. Now, the other big one for everybody is email. I love a bit of software called Active Inbox. I don't know if many people know about it. It's a really cheap sort of plugin that allows you to, and I get to inbox zero every day. I'm very proud of it because I can very quickly tell this bit of software what to do with all the emails that I get. So do you have any email tips that you like using?
Yeah, same sort of thing as the downloads folder. The email inbox is like your literal mailbox, right? It's a place for things to come in and then for things to be actioned. It's not a place for saving anything. Now, I actually am not a huge, I don't want to say proponent, but I don't really do inbox zero. I mean, I'm close. To me, as long as I have, 20 emails at all times in my inbox, that's fine. And that's where I'll just save things that are like immediately like forthcoming. Like you and I were corresponding for the past week about things. I save it there. That way it's kind of the forefront of my mind. But I've done things in the past, and for some people this might work well, where if it's something that you need to action that's going to take more than 2 minutes to just do, you can make a folder called @action. And I recommend using symbols because they can help you order your folders and enforce things to the top rather than just letting it go alphabetical. And @action is stuff that like, okay, this is things I need to take care of, but it's not just a quick processing thing. So that is one thing. And then the other thing is utilizing your all mail and your archive and just realizing that is your email inbox. You don't have to worry about keeping things in your actual inbox because you can find anything in your email archive by just searching. Just like we were talking about with our files. It's the same powerful search function. We don't have to go crazy about trying to organize stuff and save it in our inbox because we're going to lose it. It gets lost anyway when you have 10,000 emails in your inbox, right? So what's the difference?
Yeah, the search function, particularly on Gmail, it's just so powerful. So we're not too concerned about our inbox. What about our files? I just want to get your opinion too on Dropbox versus Google Drive. Have you got any preferences there? Because I kind of use both, and I know a lot of people do. One's free, one costs.
Yeah, I used Dropbox years and years ago, but their price jump was so big to go from like, was it 2 gigs for free or something to a terabyte for $10 a month. And maybe that's changed recently. I don't know. It's been a while since I've used it. But I think Dropbox integrates really well with the desktop, at least like on my PC, the desktop client. It will sync. I don't have to necessarily go to Dropbox.com, even though I would a lot. So that's one good thing I did like about Dropbox versus Google Drive. But because it was such a big price jump, I left Dropbox several years ago and used Google Drive. Now, I don't use Google Drive for everything. We actually have our own like home server
Oh, do you?
called the NAS. Yeah, my husband's a techie, so so we have our own server. But I do use Google Drive for a lot of things that I do sharing with and stuff, documents for my retreats, professional things like that. And I just love all things Google, Tim. I don't know about you, but it just works, you know, it just works well. It's pleasing to look at. But the one little thing that I don't like about Google Drive is just that desktop integration, at least on my PC. And it might be different on Macs, but to download Dropbox so that it works like with your file explorer and syncs, it just doesn't work that great.
Yeah, that is something that I love about Dropbox, which is that I've never, ever since Dropbox came out, I've never backed up my computer because you don't need to, because it's always backing everything up to the cloud. So you can always, two advantages. One, you can access all your files from every device all the time and it's kept synced. And if you ever lose anything, it's all there somewhere. So that was a huge advantage to me.
And I think I may have said that backwards a second ago. It's Google Drive's computer client that doesn't work as well. Dropbox is as good. Google Drive's not as much. So did I say that right? Okay. So I just go online to use it. But a lot of teachers, I mean, if you think about it, if you don't have your computer connected to the cloud, like if you're on a PC, if you don't have a OneDrive account that's backing up your computer, if you have everything in your downloads folder, it's not backing up. You're not saving your files unless you actually have your files in a cloud account. So
please back up, everybody.
Yes, please back up.
Yeah, back up. Do it either automatically through iCloud or Dropbox or whatever, but please keep it back up. You just never know when you're going to or could lose everything. So, all right, I think we should probably finish with your favorite all-time, and I know this because you're like a certified trainer or something, notes application. Or it's more than just notes, isn't it? So tell us about Evernote, because I know you are the Evernote person.
Well, Tim, actually, I was an Evernote person.
Ooh.
News.
Oh, newsflash. What's the
Yes,
update?
big newsflash. So I had been using Evernote since, I don't even know, forever, 2015 or something. And like I said at the beginning, I did this whole series for using Evernote for independent music teachers. And about 2 years ago, I slowly stopped using Evernote and have moved into Notion.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of Notion,
I've heard
Tim?
of Notion. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Notion is it's built in blocks. It has this really great visual element to it. Everything is in pages, and it just has a lot of more, I feel like, updated functions than Evernote does. And it's actually free versus Evernote's ever increasing pricing scheme. So I had been slowly moving all of my stuff out of Evernote and into Notion. And actually, I've teamed up with my friend Joy Morin, and we started doing a workshop for teachers called Organize Your Life with Notion. We did our first one in March. It's a 2-day workshop, and we're getting ready to do another one here in September as well. So
is that an in-person workshop?
It is what's online.
Online. Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's an online workshop. Yep.
And why would I want to use Notion? What teachers are probably going, what's Notion? Why would I use it?
It has a really, Evernote is a little bit more of a note filing cabinet. Like when you look at it, the way that things are structured, it's just like a note-taking app. You have, some functions as far as similar to like Microsoft Word, where you can, do headers and titles and links and things like that. But there's not a way to really organize things in a cohesive manner without just using like tags for notes. Notion really allows you to build like a visual homepage of everything that's related to your life. So I have what I call a dashboard. It's a 1-page home dashboard. And in that dashboard, I can see different areas of my personal life, my professional life, my Piano Pantry blog, and my studio. And so we're building one landing page. And then under each of those categories, I have pages built for every area of each of those categories. So it just is a much more kind of user-friendly way of organizing things. It's really unique. So
I'm looking at it now, and they're integrating AI into it, of course. Everybody is. Always interesting to know how useful, I guess, it is.
It can be really you can use it as simply as you want, Tim, or as deeply as you want. So they have a lot of functions like databases And the database system is really incredible. Like I've actually moved myself out of even using student software, like my music staff, and I manage everything in Notion. Now, that's not going to be for everybody, but I've actually built databases now that I can do all of my studio management stuff, like just student details, registration forms, and things like that all go into Notion.
Wow. Well, definitely worth checking out. It does say that there is pricing, but can you get everything that you do for free?
Yes. What most teachers are going to need is absolutely free. You only start paying for it when you want to share to more than like 8 people.
Right. Okay. So if you've got a team of people or an admin help in your studio or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Right. But for most teachers, there's plenty of space and resources for just the free version, which is great news because we pay for so many things these days.
I know. So does it kind of include project management? Because it looks a little bit like an Asana or something.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can do it in that way. So I manage my social media calendar right now. I built a database that I can view it like a calendar. And then I can tag my assistant in posts. I can tell her when things are, tentative or ready or they're completed. So yeah, you can definitely do a lot of project management stuff in it really nicely.
Wow. All right. I'm going to have to explore it myself, I think, Amy. Hopefully the listeners will as well. Well, look, I want to wrap up with just one other area. I mean, you are the Piano Pantry blog. You love food, cooking, everything to do with food, which I do as well. And I'm only sorry that I've never been able to sample some of your amazing cooking. I can only drool when I see the pictures of the things that you create for your workshops.
If you come to Indiana, I will cook for you.
Well, it'll have to be on my trip planned soon. But I know that a lot of us are working from home. A lot of us are also cooking meals for our families, and we're trying to do that in amongst teaching after school and right up until dinner time. Have you got 2 or 3 quick tips for the busy teacher who also needs to do some meal prep?
I do. One thing that has been my biggest lifesaver in recent years, probably been doing this in the last couple of years, is always be thinking ahead. And it's not just thinking ahead and like knowing what meals you're going to be making, but it's literally like setting out things that you need like during the prior meal. So we have breakfast, the end of breakfast before I go on about my day, what's for lunch, and I get out everything I'm going to need to prepare lunch. So if I'm going to make, stir fry, I get out the pan, I get out a spatula, I get out my cutting board, and anything that can be set out ahead of time so that when you go to the kitchen, you're ready to hit the ground running to make that meal. That has been a huge time saver. And the more that you start doing it, it just becomes part of your routine, a part of your daily workflow. And you don't finish that meal until you have prepped the next.
Yeah, just getting everything out on the bench, I think it does make a huge difference. I am quite organized and I plan the next week's meals. I don't know if everybody does that. And I get all the stuff delivered, so it's just all there. And then I can just go, bang, all right, here's what I need. And as I have time in the lead up, I'll do exactly what you do, Amy. I'll just get everything out, I'll leave it on the bench, and then I know I can go in and put it together. And any kind of tips?
I was going to say, I only do a few meals at a time. It's just 2 of us. So I tend to do like maybe 3 days planning at a time.
And any super easy meals, healthy, easy to cook, that are just your go-tos?
Well, there's a lot of, I love doing lunches that are just like simple toast lunches, like a nice little piece of toast, avocado, a soft boiled egg, little things like that. Or, cottage cheese and sauteed mushrooms on a piece of toast. I don't know if you've heard about the craze for chili crunch or chili crisp. That's been my newest thing.
No. Oh, so
maybe
crispy chili.
Families may not like this. I don't know, but
is that crispy stuff in chili oil?
Yeah, it's like
I bought some recently.
So good. I mean,
It's
everything
good.
like grilled cheese sandwiches. I do fried eggs over a bed of rice with this chili crisp. Trying to think what else. It's just so good.
Sounds like a lot of those I would consider kind of breakfasty ones, but you're saying, well, why? I mean, these are nice and easy. Breakfasts are easy, so why you could do them for lunch as well.
True. And actually, my husband and I aren't big breakfast people, so I tend to do a lot of that kind of stuff for lunch, I suppose. So,
well, I know that you'll hopefully have a recipe book coming out at some stage in the future, Amy. I'm still waiting for it. Yeah, you should. Absolutely. But let's wrap things up. Tell everybody about where they should go to find out more about what you can help teachers with.
Yeah. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I do the digital organization coaching 2 or 3 times throughout the year, generally in the winter months. I've been doing a summer intensive. And I guess I've only done it twice, not usually during the fall as much, but I do have one coming up. I haven't set the exact dates, but it will be at the end of July, beginning of August. And you can visit pianopantry.com/digital for that. If you're interested in the in-person session that I do for that, it's basically the same content. My retreat is pianopantry.com/retreat. And then the workshop that Joy and I do on Notion, which is coming up in September, is pianopantry.com/Notion. So 3 different things.
That I'm going to be looking that one up as well, because I would love to know how this one works and could be integrated into my life and my studio and everything. So, Amy, thank you so much. Is there anything I've kind of missed talking about that you're like, oh, Tim, you've got to ask me about this? We've missed something.
Well, the only thing that I thought that maybe I missed mentioning when we were talking about Google Drive was the capability of organizing files and adding visual elements by adding colors to your files. So you can color code, like your folders in Google Drive if you're a visual person. And also you can add emojis into the text, like the name of your file. Sometimes if you add like a little emoji at the beginning, there's keyboard shortcuts for that, like Windows period on a PC, or I think Mac is like maybe Command Control space or something, and like an emoji box will pop up. And then you can actually insert emojis into the name of your file. So that's been something I've been doing in the last year that really kind of just gives you a nice, fun organizational element to your file organization. So
maybe puts a smile on your face as well.
It does, yeah. It makes it more fun.
Well, we'll put all those links in our show notes for today's episode. Oh, your podcast as well, Piano Pantry Podcast.
Oh, yeah. that would be a good one.
Yeah.
It is the Piano Pantry Podcast. Yeah, so that's pianopantry.com/podcast. It's a weekly podcast, and it's about 8 to 12 minutes, and I share everything teacher life related, whether it's organizing your studio or getting dinner on the table and everything that comes between.
I love it. Yeah, highly recommend it. Short, sweet, really useful information. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on the show today. It's been great to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, Tim.
I hope you enjoyed my chat today with Amy Chaplin, and I hope you can take away just a couple of suggestions, even if it's something as simple as that idea of making sure you rename files that you download so that you can easily search for them. Over on the Piano Podcast this week, we have episode number 23 on the Alexander technique. This month, we're looking at a variety of instructional methodologies around music teaching. For example, diving into Dalcroze's Alexander technique, Suzuki, Kadai, Orff, and we are summarizing it all in this month's Top Music magazine. If you haven't yet downloaded it, go and grab it. It's over at topmusic.co/magazine. Completely free digital download. And you can access that as well if you come to the APPC conference. I'm actually getting a number of printed copies done. So if you're in Australia and you're coming to the APPC conference in Melbourne coming up in a few weeks, make sure you come to our booth and grab some copies of the Top Music mag, and you can actually hold them in your hands. Well, that's the end of the show for this week. Don't forget to leave me a voicemail if you'd like. You can just say hi if you want, or suggest topics, suggest a question, or an interviewee indeed. Just head to topmusic.co/message. Next week on the podcast, we are interviewing our July Top Music Sheets composer. I can't wait. This guy is an absolute champ, and I have had such fun hanging out with him at conferences. The fantastic Brock Chart is creating our compositions for July, and he's going to be on the show next week. Until then, I'm Tim Topham, and you've been listening to the Topcast. Can't wait to connect with you again in 1 week's time. Bye-bye, everyone. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.